Good morning. This is Tuesday, January 10th of the year 2012, and I want to welcome all of you to our first public information meeting of the year. The League has had a long history with Mount Hood Community College. Many of our members helped with the organization of the school. They served on various committees. They followed the works of the college and the development all through the years. They also saw new programs being introduced and different programs being changed. I don't know, do you still have a mortuary science
We do.
class? That was one of the first classes I remember from there.
Yes.
Besides people volunteering at the school, we have had members, including our Dr. Susan Foster, who worked many years at Mount Hood Community College. And so we're always interested in what's going on there and what they hope will go on there. And I want to introduce you this morning to Dr. Michael Hay, our president of Mount Hood Community College.
Thank you. I appreciate having the opportunity to be here today. It's nice to see all your shiny faces and smiling along. So it is a new year, and here we go, right? I was thinking as I was getting ready to think about my remarks, I'm starting to hear some of you that have been around the college for quite some time. You can probably tell more stories about the college than I ever could along the way. But it's helpful to know that history. It makes a difference in the future and where we're going. So as indicated, my name is Mike Hay. I'm the current president of the college here. And my task today is to talk to you about the future of MHCC, both in terms of its future and directions that we expect to be seeing, as well as some of the aspirations and dreams we have maybe about the college. So that'll be my focus. But before I start, I just wanted to share a little bit of a story with you on a personal nature. My parents are both still alive at 94 years old. And what's particularly interesting about my parents is my father is a fighter pilot, or that was his career along the way. A little bit of a different tradition along the way, but surprisingly in the Marine Corps where he spent his career, education was a hallmark of what they did. They didn't so much call it education, they called it training and they called it development and things along those lines. But they were always in training mode, and then they'd send him off to war for a while and then he would come back. But he has a sense of development and training and education in his life that extends to this day. My mother was also a Marine. She was an attorney, one of the first women in the Marine Corps judge advocate thing. And you'll find my mother's name on the wall of women in the military in Washington, D.C. As she goes along that way. Well, the reason I bring up my parents at their 94-year-old age is my parents are really plugged into this world. If you were to get around them, you'd see they have an Apple Macintosh on their desk around there. My father drives an iPad, and my mother runs an iPhone. And between the three of them, they sit on the couch because they kind of shuffle around a little bit these days. And they do Facebook, and they talk to our grandkids and all that sort of thing as they're out and around. Our family's kind of far-flung. They hop on Skype with our kid back in New Jersey all the time to see the great-grandkids that are coming up there. And one of the projects my dad and I have been involved in lately is taking all our family history, that is all the photos that are sitting around on 35mm slides, you might remember those, right? And we've got a whole closet of them. Well, we converted them all over to digital images just recently. Wasn't very costly, surprisingly. And we threw them all on my dad's computer. He's now got them all on his iPad. He's got them all on his iPhone as he's running around showing them off to everybody. He's trying to build slideshows out of them. He's trying to make little movies out of them. He's trying to put together little perspectives for each of the grandchildren about what we looked like during those days. And the interesting part about it is he doesn't know how to do it all, but he's got a Mac. And with that Mac, he's able to kind of figure it out. And part of the way he's able to figure it out is there's a lot of learning online. And so what I refer to my father as, he is a micro learner. So he's not out to take a whole class for a whole semester. He's not out on his way to take a class for a couple of months or anything. He just wants to know how to build a little movie. So he watches a little 2-hour clip from Apple about how to build a movie on his Mac, and in turn produce a little thing that's kind of embarrassing for me that he shows to my kids along the way, and lets them know what I was like as an infant or as a kid, as I'm running around buck naked, and something that I'm doing. And my mother's doing similar kinds of things. You know, she's a little more practical in her usage of the things, but now she's taking these little movies and showing them around to all the people in the independent living facility that she's with up there. And then she comes back and gives my father's, you know, little editorial comments. Well, you know, the way you put that one together, it doesn't kind of work like that. So the two of them are learning how to make movies on their Mac, etc. But again, it's from a micro-learning perspective. Well, I tell you that story not so much to tell you about all my family history as everything, but it's more about trends and directions that are going on in the world of education today and things we as a college really have to pay attention to. I don't know if any of you have ever seen a site called lynda.com, L-Y-N-D-A, lynda.com. And if you were to go to lynda.com, you could learn anything you want to do in a computer, and you can do it in that micro-learning stuff. If you want to take a whole course on building movies, you can certainly do it. But if it's only one element that you're after, you can certainly do that. Those are things we've got to pay attention to, and I'll touch on technology a little bit more along the way. But first, let me give you a little perspective of where I'm heading today. I wanted to give you a little bit of an introduction, background on myself here, so you get a feel from whence I've come. I want to talk about MHCC's, Mount Hood's role in the community as we see it at this point. Some of the changes we're making both in the short term as well as the long term. And then I want to talk about your community college here in your neighborhood along the way. So my own personal background, I've been actually at the college now for 4.5 years. So I'm not new to the college. I'm new to this position as the president, but I came up here as the chief information officer, hence all the little connection to technology that you find along the way. I started out as an educator in California, and then a little thing in California called Proposition 13 hit, which is similar to your Measure 5 up here, which kind of changed the whole financial structure of what was going on in education. And I was teaching television production and technology courses in sort of those foundling days, and all of a sudden there was this pushback to reading, writing, and arithmetic, and I found myself heading to industry to get a change in things. But I did serve as a classroom teacher. I did serve as an administrator in the schools, all in the secondary schools. Secondly, I taught in the Navy for a while I was out at sea. I taught adult education. And then thirdly, I went into industry. And so in industry, I'm really proud of my background, but I had 3 primary companies I worked for along the way. The first was Pacific Bell, the second one is Gap Incorporated, and third is Kaiser Permanente. Well, why do I care about those, and what do those have to do with my job today? Well, I would say they've really well prepared me for the role of being president here at the college. First of all, Pacific Bell. Pacific Bell was the telephone provider back when it was just plain old telephones, and we did California and Nevada. But what was interesting about them is they were very tied into their community. They were really connected to the community, and we as employees did all sorts of things. We put on events, we were all over our communities, and yes, we were providing phone service, but providing phone service was just, it was a lifeline for people in those days. It was long before cell phones ever came about and all that sort of thing. So think about the first phones on your house and what that meant to your communications and your families and your connections with the world. So community was a really big deal. The second company I worked for was Gap Incorporated, you know, Gap, Banana Republic, Old Navy, that sort of thing. And what was particularly interesting about that was the whole notion of the retail environment. Now, not everybody's excited about going shopping or whatever, but you know, 69% of this economy is based on people shopping in various stores around about, and people make a choice about coming to Mount Hood Community College, and we have to be really strong about who we are, what we stand for, and why should you come to us. I mean, if you think about it, just like you hear on the airlines when you're on Southwest or in the others, we recognize you have a lot of choice about who you're going to fly with, right? And thank you for flying Southwest Airlines. Well, we need to be doing the same thing at the college. Thank you for flying with MHCC and for coming to us. And so what are we doing to earn your business to come to our college? Now, earning your business in education circles is a little bit of an anathema, if you will, in that, well, we don't like to think of ourselves as a business, but rest assured, we are a business, okay? We are the third largest employer in the city, in the area, in Gresham, and we push out, what do we push out? Something like 2,000 W-2s at the end of a year, and we have a lot of people that contribute to this economy. There's a lot of spin effects that people talk about that were upwards of 650 million contribution into the community around here. We put a lot of people to work both as our own employees as well as a result of our programs that make a difference up there. So being tied into what's important to customers, how to sell, how to cause people to come to your institution are all things that are really important. Our brand and our brand promise are crucial types of things. Finally, I spent time at Kaiser Permanente, and I was there when they started to put in all their electronic medical records system. So I don't know if some of you have been involved with Kaiser, and if you are, you would see what those electronic medical records are all about. But what that's really tied to about what I do in my work now is student information systems. I mentioned a little bit about technology, but technology is a big play now, and it's getting bigger and bigger on the campuses of today. And how we leverage that technology makes a huge difference. We have information systems now that can tell us anything and everything about our students, that's for sure. But really, and more importantly, where we're heading with is helping our students be successful. That is, what are the educational plans that they're on? What are their goals and aspirations? What are they trying to achieve? How are they progressing as they move along in life? And it's a real change. You know, we used to have an organization called Student Services that sort of took care of financial aid and counseling and stuff like that. We call them Student Success now, and we're really interested in success and achievement and completion as opposed to the world of yesterday. When I started college, I tell this story a lot, and I think it might resonate with some of you. I went to college when I was a freshman in there. I was sitting in there, and this dean came on and waxed on about all the great things of this college I was going to. UC Santa Barbara, if you know where Santa Barbara, California is, right on the beach, and it was hard to tell whether you're in college or, you know, surfing all the time around about. But the dean talked about all the wonderful programs and the great things we were going to learn and all we're doing. And then when he finished it, we thought we were going to get some big, inspiring speech coming out of him. And what he turned around and did said, okay, everybody look to your left. Everybody look to your right. 2 of the 3 of you will not be here at the end of this term, okay? So that doesn't talk about student success. Flunking out people was a big deal, okay? And he was right. 2 out of 3 of us weren't there, and we weren't shocked necessarily, but surprised, you know, that sort of thing happened. So we had to get back in their good graces and get back in and sort of finish up along the way. But we don't like to think that way anymore. We like to think about student success and what it means to be successful and move forward. A couple of questions for you. How many of you remember when the Gresham campus was a berry field? Probably quite a few along the way up over there. How many students do you think we have served in the past 46 years? Pardon me?
Thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands. Millions.
Getting up there. We just crossed the 1 million mark this year in the fall. It's a huge amount of students coming through there. I don't know if you know it, but our current enrollment is a little north of 32,000 students, unique students coming to the campus. That's a lot of people crawling around over on our campus as well as crawling around in your community out and around. What are some of the reasons that you currently come to our campus? I heard you talk about you're a neighbor and you come over for various things. Any other reasons why people come to the campus?
Yeah, sometimes there are some lectures going on that I'm interested in.
Yeah, good.
Classes.
Classes, yes.
Theater productions.
Theater productions, good.
I used to go very often for theater productions, but unfortunately the campus has made some of the community organizations less welcome.
Really?
Yes.
Maggie, would you talk to her and find out what she means by that? Yes, that's a concern for us, actually. Yes.
My grandkids swimming.
Yeah, that swimming, we have a phenomenal swimming pool there.
Yeah, and then the planetarium is always interesting.
Yeah, up there. So just some good examples. You had one, I'm sure?
Yeah, different classes.
Different classes, yeah. And we do run a lot of community-oriented classes as well. People can just come. I think like our jewelry making happens to be one of our most popular classes. It sells out every term, surprisingly. The weekend computer classes, yeah, up there. And so we have a lot of those kinds of things going on. So what's one word when you think of Mount Hood that comes to your mind?
Diversity.
Diversity? Learning? Beautiful campus, yes. We get a lot of kudos for that.
Swimming?
Swimming, yes. We had some issues with financing our pool here lately, and you should see the outpouring of people that came before the board here last month talking. You were one of them. It was wonderful to hear those stories and what that was all about up there. So those are kind of words that we hear, and I'll talk about some of the other kinds of things along the way too. So our role. If you were to look at Mount Hood Community College, it's been around for 46 years. And people have certain perceptions about what it's all about. There's a difference between our brand and branding along the way, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. But our brand is what people think of the college. It's how you perceive us and what you begin to think about it. Well, my 94-year-old father, up until about a year or two ago, was always trying to figure out what he wants to do when he grows up. I'm not sure if he's actually figured it out yet, but that's the way he always kind of talked. And so, you know, I'm getting up there a little bit now too, so I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do when I grow up as well. But I think the same thing is true of the college. I think one of the things I learned in industry along the way, the status quo doesn't work anymore. You know, just trying to stay the same old college, the same old thing, and doing the same old things, it doesn't resonate after a while. And so whether you're in business, you're at a college, we really have to think about who we are, what we're all about, and how that stands. Well, we go through an annual planning cycle, a 3-year planning cycle that we refresh on an annual basis, and we're about ready to do that again. So what we're trying to do is pick up on this notion of who we are, where we want to go, what are we trying to accomplish, and who are our customers out there, and what can we do. We did this through an organization called PICTIF, which is a long acronym for the President's Integrated Communication Task Force. But it's a task force we've been looking at to, first of all, figure out what our brand is, how that branding comes across to people, and then thirdly, how do we deal with our whole digital enterprise? So again, I'm a little bit of a technology nut along the way, but we have a website. Well, that website is really out of date. We have lots of other programs that don't integrate well with it. So our goal is to put all that together. So if you're coming because you want to know the pool, you may want to know when it's open for swimming along that way. If you want to take that jewelry course, you may want to hit our website to find out when it's going to be offered, what it's going to cost you. And I want it to really be easy to do that sort of enrollment online there. If you want to know about our diversity programs, how we are in those areas, et cetera, well, you want to read. Maybe that's important to you before you're going to engage with our college, et cetera. So, you know, we want to get to a point where our digital representation of what we think we stand about is really important, really accessible. I'm thinking back to my 94-year-old parents doing their microeducation. They still search out who they want to do business with in the terms of where they want to attend, where they want to go. And it's my perception that people are starting to do that more and more. And we certainly see a lot of evidence of that. So we're trying to figure out where we're going, et cetera. So in the short term here, we're looking to revitalize our brand. As you look at this last line, right in there, Mount Hood exists for the success of our community. Now that's an interesting statement for us. We have 3 sort of themes that we run the college on: teaching and learning, community engagement, and resource development. Community engagement's a big one. However, we've had the emphasis on community. What can we do to be in the community, be around, and be known? So for example, I'm here speaking in front of you. I do this on a regular basis. But the word we're really starting to put more emphasis on is engagement. So how do we engage the community with what's going on in the college? So a moment ago, I asked you about how you interact with the college, you know, and you heard all sorts of examples of you coming on the college, and we want to really be refreshing and open. So your comment really resonates with me about, you know, what do we have to be to be open to generate the kind of attitudes in people where they will come on the campus, whether it's for the plays, whether it's for the pool, or the other kinds of classes that you might take up there. What do we have to do to be super friendly and open about you attending the college and coming on there? So the website work, I mentioned that, but we need to move that along. So what we're finding about our brand is supporting the community is huge. We need to really be thinking about how we engage with the community, how the community engages with us, and interaction's another word that's there. How do you interact with the campus? It's not simply that you come on, you do this real quick, you get in your car and you drive away. You know, we're interested in people doing things on the campus. I don't know if you're familiar with an insurance company called Zurich International. They do a lot of commercial insurance. And they have an ad campaign that goes, because change happens, with a Z at the end of the happens, up there. Well, I would submit to you that if you come on our campus these days, life happens on our campus. You'll see all sorts of human drama occurring on our campus, hopefully of a positive nature. For example, we just hosted the Northwest Championships for women's volleyball. I don't know if any of you care about women's volleyball, but on the other hand, it's a pretty dramatic sport. And to look at those young women, you know, hauling around on the court here, trying to win a championship was just really dramatic. Mount Hood Community College happened to be the winner this year. We're particularly excited and proud of those young women for doing that. But what was interesting was the very end of it. I was standing on the floor watching the results of this. Our team just totally dominated the other team. At the very end, I saw the father of one of his daughters was on our team, just in tears of joy at the end of this thing. He said, I didn't think this girl was going to be able to do anything in life. And look at this, she's a champ. And, you know, and I just saw that sort of thing. The coach was in a mosh pit, if you know what a mosh pit is, you know, at the end of the thing as they're hoisting around the thing and all this amount of joy. Well, as I was starting to leave, the other poor team, which had been totally dominated, was just in absolute tears on the other side over there. Mothers were hugging their daughters and fathers were kind of propping them up along the way. And it was kind of a sad moment, but I'll tell you, it was kind of a joyful moment at the same time, in the sense that these people put their heart and souls into what was going on that court up there. It was an educational environment, but it was a personal environment, and it was a meaningful environment to the schools, et cetera. So when you see those tears of joy and tears of sadness, life happens on our campus as we're going around. So supporting the community is a big thing. Advocating for students. We care about students a lot. They're our bread and butter. They come to the campus and they make a difference in our world about what's going on the campus. Without them, we wouldn't be there. We wouldn't have a mission. We wouldn't have a purpose necessary. Embracing inclusivity. We really care about trying to be inclusive of the community as a whole, of giving a place for them to come. As I wander around and talk, I hear a lot of people talking about this gym in the backyard, gym, G-E-M, in the backyard, and it's kind of this unheralded thing in a way. So connecting, being inclusive, allowing the community to participate and connect is really important. And then be really transparent about our communications. So that website effort I was talking about is part of that, but also to know all the other things that are going on. How do we let you know what's happening? How do we let you know about the state of our finances, the invigorating new programs we have, our connections to the community, et cetera? We need to find ways to do that. Our strengths are, we have a long-term presence in the community. So we talked about this notion of 46 years being around. We've been over there for that long. Some of you have had connections to us. Some of you, we may be fairly new. We have a highly recognizable name. Just about everywhere I go, people, you know, at least in this community, certainly know it. But the interesting part about what they know about us is the types of things. The pool really resonates with people. The old jazz festival that no longer is there is highly resonant up there. And then the KMHD, the jazz station that we still hold the license to and still run in conjunction with OPB are main things. Those are big names. And so as we figure out what we want to be when we grow up, we have to find those new events that are going to be important and resonate with the community and reasons for people to connect and talk about. What are the news stories that come up? We have an excellent product. We do a great job of educating people and creating learning environments up there. We have very dedicated faculty and staff, a lot of long-term employees here in the Gresham area. Over 65% of our faculty and staff live in the community that we serve. And then we're a pretty important community resource, and one that I would challenge in my team to work with is to be a really, really, really important community resource. Our opportunities, website I talked about, we are looking to build deeper roots within the community. What can we do to connect and reconnect and cause interaction with our campus? How do we re-engage the community and how do we open it up? So back to your point back there about, we're doing some things that aren't great for accessibility. And so we want to challenge that notion of what we're doing and think about where to go. Some of the changes in the long term that we're beginning to look at is revitalizing our whole educational program. One of the themes we have about our educational programs is we put people to work. So even though we have the transfer notion where you do your first 2 years with us and then you move on to Oregon State, Oregon, Southern Cal, my alma mater, anywhere else that you want to go along in life, getting through that first 2 years of your general education, we can do that and we can handle it. But we also have some 80 different programs that put people to work, whether it's cosmetology, the mortuary science, funeral services that you mentioned, picking up our allied health programs like radiology, surgical tech, dental hygiene, nursing are all programs that put people to work, and we do that. But what we're finding is, as we look in the community and with employers, there's other needs that are beginning to pop up. This one about health informatics, that's the whole world of electronic medical records that's going on at Kaiser and with your other doctors that you're starting to find. So we're starting to develop people for that. Wilderness leadership and experiential education. The outdoors is a big deal here in the state of Oregon, and giving people careers and opportunities in that is pretty important. Video game development may not thrill all of you per se, but if you've got any grandchildren or adult children in your families or anything, that's a hot area right now in the technology world to be able to do it. You may not think it's important, but video game development is far beyond the war games at this point. There are simulations that take place in education. There's whole strategy development types of things that corporations and businesses use, and it's a real expansive area. And we'll be looking for suggestions for other directions to go. One of my favorites is 3D printing. Anybody ever heard of 3D printing? Yeah, the tech guy in the back has up over here. And 3D printing is really kind of interesting. If you were to look at this lamp right over there, manufacturers take a whole bunch of materials and they whittle those materials down to create this particular device over here. Well, 3D printing is designing the lamp, and right now they use it in airplane parts in a big way, medical parts, new joints and hip parts and things along those lines. And what they do is they design it on a computer, and then they hit a button and it goes just to a printer, just like you think of a printer, except instead of putting it on a piece of paper, they actually build the object. So they have all the polymers and all the other things that are going in. And so it's called, additive rather than subtractive. If you have a big block of this stuff and you whittle it down, you have a lot of waste. Maybe you can reuse some of that waste, but in 3D printing, you can now build it from scratch. And you see these little machines and they just kind of build it up. And so imagine the next hip joint you're gonna have put in you is built that way on the side, and they're just building it to your specs and your perspective and your body type. And they go, okay, it's time to put it in, build it out, and next thing you know, it's in your body, floating around. Sounds a little weird, but it's a whole revolution that's going on in the world of manufacturing. Well, we need to be teaching programs like that. Whether we'll pick that one up or not depends on whether the business environment will go that way. But it's certainly a new direction that we need to consider. So if you look at almost every profession, every industry, new things are happening. I'm sure you read about them in the papers, you hear about them, you look at your kids, your grandkids, and what they're into. I think, it was always a sign to me that I was aging a little bit when I didn't recognize what the heck my grandchild was doing out there working, where I couldn't understand it. I work in the IT industry. I've got a really good friend whose son is an application designer for a law firm up there, and his parents, my best friends, they have no clue as to what their kid does. And so I sit around over a beer trying to explain what this guy does for a living. And they're still scratching their head, but about 5 years later, I'm starting to get the idea across about what their son does for a living, because they can't quite figure it out. Changes to our facility. So we've mentioned the notion that the college is 46 years old. She talked about circus tents that were on the campus there to begin with. So we did all this building, over this 46-year period up there, but most of it was a long time ago, like 40 years ago, that all that building came in. We added the first new building on the campus just recently, and that was our Early Childhood Center. It's a world-class center for early childhood development and education. I invite you by to take a look at it. It's just quite remarkable to take a look at it. But the college has not passed a bond the entire time they've been around. We've had no new building up until this, and this was simply grant money that we got from the state before all the state monies dried up. And so we have been looking about developing a master plan. And the master plan advised 14 different projects, 3 new structures on there, this Technology Innovation Center, the Science Learning Center, and the Student Success Center, new dining court, et cetera. And so what I thought I'd do is give you a quick highlight of what the campus looks like. This is moving, so it's a good thing I talk fast. But you're looking at all the athletic fields over down in that area. But as you come along looking into this, this is the new Kane Street entrances there and there into a new center part of the campus. We'll revitalize that. There's that new early childhood. And you'll see a long pedestrian mall moving down through here. That would be a center line coming in off of Stark right on down. There are the new buildings that come in over there. And this is a full perimeter around the college. Like you can't get around the college at this point. And then as we begin to move in, all these courtyards are like one big long building. They'll start to have new definition within them. We'll have 2 primary entrances or front doors to the college and better signage. And this is, if you've been on our campus, this is kind of coming down to the main quad area. It begins to change it. We have a great view of Mount Hood up there. We have signage coming in. And one thing we don't have a lot of is conference center. And all this can be conference center, focus center to bring people in. If you see that area down in there right now on campus, it doesn't look anything like that. It would begin to dramatically change all that and capitalize on it. Walkways are more enclosed, better advertising of theater and sign, redesigned theater. Our theater is quite something though if you haven't been in it. What else we got here? Okay, we're coming back in that major quad area. Again, the conference centers in the Vista Cafe. This would bring a lot of student services that are on the perimeter of the campus back into the main part of it. Mount Hood would be right out of there. Then covered walkways to deal with the weather types of situations. Some of it's covered now, but a lot of it is open. We come up around, the library is up there, newly redesigned and managed. We'll probably double the size of the library that begins to include. Library is an interesting thing these days. A lot of books and you think, well, everything's online and all digital. Well, people really come to that. It's like the living room of the college up over there. And by the way, the community can come and use our library as easily as a student can and take advantage. Coming around the corner over here is new definition, kind of the new entrance to the college. And what you begin to see is a change in the windows. Thematically, we're trying to pick up the mountain sort of concept up here of Mount Hood when you look at this as I come out right over here. And this would be a new focal point for all the student services that occur, which are now scattered all over the campus. You begin to see a rooftop line up over there where on nice days, a few times we have nice days around here, you can use that rooftop for dining and what have you. Back over in here we have our arts center if you're taking classes in jewelry making, ceramics, what have you. We would build probably new outdoor auditoriums over there. And okay, that was kind of a quick run through that whole thing. But you know, we're really excited with where we're going. We've got new demand for those new buildings around technology and science and science, math, STEM we call it, science, technology, engineering, and math are huge areas of emphasis as we're going forward. My team and I have been working a lot on kind of our overarching strategies. How are we going to drive this organization where we're going to go? We certainly have a notion about delivering student-oriented value propositions. Why would you come to us? If you look at this line right here, we can only distinguish ourselves based on how we do what we do. We have a lot of competition in the area. There's other community colleges, there's other private colleges, there's other universities that exist. And we've got to figure out why people come to us, hence all the branding work up there. But it's not so much about what we do. A lot of people do what we do. It's how we go about doing it. How do we treat students? How do we deliver student-oriented value things? How do we have an overall student experience and journey that is welcoming, facilitating, and energizing? Back to your point about coming to the campus and why, you know, what we do to make it a positive environment. And we have a lot of talented people to help drive it. Like I said, we put out 2,000 W-2s at the end of the year. There's a lot of people trying to make this a really positive place. Competition, I talked about that up over here. And then we have lots of other areas, including our recently expanded Veterans Service area. We're a very vet-friendly school. We won awards for it over the last 3 years. And we know with the closing down of Iraq, et cetera, we're going to have a lot more influx of vets coming into the area. Technology trends, I did mention those. And I think what I really want to do is show you this slide. You may not recognize all of those things, but do you realize that this is in the world today? There are 1.5 trillion web pages out there, 20 billion tweets, 2.1 million live posts, all those social members, Facebook users, and all of that. So what's the point of looking at all of that? Gartner, which is a research firm that we use for technology, did a predicts 2012, technology fuels education on the move. A couple of key quotes for you. The world of choice is shaking the halls of higher education, reaching traditional organizations like the lecture hall, the library, and the bookstores. Consumerization is driving a proliferation of devices to an unprecedented level of end users. These include the smartphones, the media tablets, laptops, ebook readers, and a whole variety of other systems that are coming into play. Technology continues to expand the educational ecosystem, giving rise to a migration from a homogeneous learning environment to a world of choice where learners and staff alike seek and use all sorts of technological tools for their education. Overall, mobile and consumer technologies are key disrupting traditional models of organization and instruction. So we see the coming of technology. It's here right now. Over 30% of our students take online courses. We expect that to grow. It's a growing segment of what we do, and it's taken us way beyond the boundaries of Gresham. Students are enrolling from all over the place because we have programs like funeral science, because we have a cosmetology program, because we have these other programs that people value and they can't get in other areas. By 2016, traditional agencies will lose 10% of their revenue due to a loss of enrollment due to technology. And we find people heading for technological directions in new ways. I don't know if you're familiar with Second Life or virtual meetings. In the IT world, just like other businesses, we lost our ability to travel for a while. Well, this whole thing called Second Life, which is online virtual worlds, has begun to emerge. And in that, you can go to a convention, and at that convention, you can listen to lectures. You can walk around all the booths that you ever would see. You can see little demonstrations of products, and you can do that. Well, certain colleges now, particularly proprietary colleges, are creating colleges within these virtual worlds. And you can go to college in this virtual world and have almost all of the experience you would have on a campus live, except it's not three-dimensional. Okay? But you can do all the same. You can hear the classroom instructor and doing that. It's a whole new direction. Publication, if our professors write new books and what it out, well, they don't have to wait for some publisher to buy it anymore. They can self-publish and push it out there themselves, and they do, to put it in various classes. The iPads are beginning more and more to hit it. If you were to think of that, by 2015, 20% of higher educational institutions will gain a competitive advantage via BYOD. You've heard of BYOB, I'm sure, okay? But BYOD is bring your own device to college, okay? So you can bring your iPad, your smartphone, your tablet, or whatever else you have and make a difference with it. Changes to state funding. I don't know if you, League of Women Voters here, I'm sure you're aware of various laws that are being passed and legislative activities. These three right here are having a profound impact on what we're doing, not only funding, but what we're all about. 242 creates this whole new governance. You're starting to hear about the CEDO, the Chief Education Officer for the state. You may have heard of that one along the way, which is going to change the whole structure of education in the state of Oregon. It's an important change, and it's not so much that they're going to hire a particular individual, but it is what that means for the state of education within Oregon. 253 is now talking about this 40-40-20 rule. That is saying that 100% of the population of Oregon is going to be a graduate of some form of education. 20% is at the high school level, 40% is at the community college level, and 40% is at the university level. Well, it's really interesting how many people we have coming out of high schools who are not college ready. Our adult basic skills programs are just through the roof at this point. So it's beginning to put some emphasis back on the earlier years, make sure those young people are educated and prepared to handle academic work. But jobs are moving in these directions, and the youth and the grandchildren all of you might have out there, even great-grandkids like my parents have, they need to be prepared to deal with this world out there. The community college is becoming the linchpin of education. We go both ways. We relate to the high schools, we relate to the universities in terms of what we're doing. They're a very effective, cost-effective means of education for people. And it's no longer a requirement just to have a high school degree. If you're not coming out with degrees and certificates out of us along the way, your chances of getting jobs are just diminished in serious kinds of ways. Senate Bill 909 really talks about this notion of completion. And the whole notion of completion is, right now as a community college, we're really focused on open access. Come one, come all, take whatever you want, etc. Really, our future is all about completing degrees and certificates. And we have a challenge of increasing that by 50%. Right now, in interesting statistics, I've got 32,000 students, but I only produce 1,000 degrees in a given year. Mainly because people have all sorts of reasons of why they come there. So we need to increase that by 50%, and we help people with completions. What kind of goals do they have, where they're trying to go? So if you're paying attention to what's going on in the legislative, which I would assume all of you are doing, these three bills are just key, and there's a couple of House bills in the K-12 level that are really impactful about what's going on. So your community college, we've talked about all this sort of thing. We have all of these sorts of things going on the campus. So it's more than just classes, and we're inviting you to come and get engaged with the college in every way you possibly can. We have women's basketball coming up, faculty art shows. We have Snoopy the play be presented at the college. Bring your grandkids when you do that sort of thing. And you can take a class or two or three, and sounds like some of you still are. Don't forget we have our other centers. The Bruning Center, which is right by Max over there in Civic Drive. We do a lot of our nursing work, but we do other allied health types of activities. Maywood Park up over here is a very old community-centered organization in terms of what we have, and then we have the main Gresham campus, where a large part of it. So we have the primary campus in Gresham, we have two major centers in Bruning and Maywood, and then we have 17 other small facilities around and about in the area. So I think there's a total of, well, we had 21, so we're down to 20 because we just had to close our Steps to Success program. I guess I would conclude by saying, you know, we have this B theme, be your dream, be all you can be, up there. And I guess there are four things I would leave you about what Mount Hood is all about these days. We're putting a greater emphasis on community. What does it mean to interact and interface with your community and the people within it? Remember, life happens on our campus. A continued investment in technology and the employment of that technology in education, as well as all the surrounding things of outside the classroom. A mix of various studies that resonate not only with our students, but with the community and with employers. And then finally, this big emphasis on completion. And so with that, hopefully gives you a perspective of what we're all about, what we're dreaming about, where we're going. I'd be happy to answer any sort of questions you might have. Yes, ma'am?
What businesses and industries within Gresham have you, or what your goals are to meet their needs? I mean, real specific, not generally, but specific on the larger employers in Gresham.
Well, the three larger employers we have a lot to do with is Boeing, Leatherman, and Danner Boots. So all three of those we have them quite a bit. Boeing is our best example over there. They have a huge amount of development opportunities within there for all the various jobs and roles that they have. Everything from their leadership roles to technical roles. So we work with them. Oh, and their employees also get vouchers for education in there. And they can deploy those anywhere they want. Well, we've been working with Boeing for quite some time now in developing programs that lead to all their occupations, to lead specifically into their leadership programs, and even some of their administrative skills like Microsoft Office and what have you. We've enjoyed a really good relationship with them for quite some time. Very similar things going on with Danner and Leatherman. Microchip, we have a big thing going on with them. And I think one of the areas we've tried to save money over the years is our outreach and reducing employees in those kinds of areas. And it's an area we intend to kick back up. And we don't find ourselves interested in employing just like the HR team, like how can we help you with your training? But we're really after, at this point, finding the CEOs of all these organizations that are out here and beginning to say, you know, what do your employees need to be doing to help your company be successful? And how can we help you with your employees? So we're getting more and more into business consulting, not necessarily using all our own straight faculty that we currently have. Like 3D printing, we don't have any of that expertise on board, but there are people in the area that know about it. Out in the Hood River area, all these smart drones that the military uses, et cetera, we have some programs kind of gearing up related with them. And we're hiring their employees to be our faculty to come in and teach those kinds of programs in the area. So it's an area of development we're really going to push and start putting a lot more emphasis on. But we have some really good stories right now about those. Does that help?
Well, the other question I had was about bond issues. When you talked about the master plan, is there going to be bond issues coming up?
Yes. The only way we can do this is to go for a bond, and we will probably be beginning to pursue a bond within about a year to a year and a half. And in fact, my board has a retreat in the end of January, and we're starting to forge that path with them then. But we have to do it. You know, our buildings are 40 plus years old, and you just think about a set of buildings 40 years old that's had nothing but deferred maintenance on them. Even though it's a gorgeous campus, we're starting to have all sorts of problems. And we just need to find a new way to do it rather than just trying to fix them and patch them together. And building this whole new world that I showed here is our answer of what we'd like to do.
You touched upon my question, which was, yes, one of my major impressions of the college is that the need for maintenance and upgrades and such. And I was wondering, you know, yes, your plans for the future are beautiful, but how do you plan to pay for the work that needs to be done to maintain it?
Yeah, it's a tough thing right now. I mean, when you look at my budget, I only do about $800,000 a year in kind of maintenance types of things for the college. It's nowhere near enough. In next year's budget cycle, we're looking to double that, begin to try to do it. We're looking for grants, like one of the early stages of this master planning is to deal with our seismic improvements. And we think we can get a lot of grants on those to get that off the ground. We did get our new building up, the new child development thing. That building was just a mess that we replaced up there. The other thing, one of the early projects also that we're trying to do is about wayfinding. We run Ask Me tables on campus at the beginning of the term, and that is, come up and ask me anything you want to ask me. And the number one question people ask is, where is, you know, room whatever, or where is the theater, and all that. Our signage and our wayfinding and destination finding is just awful. And so we're going to attack that this year. Out of the finding. I mean, I'm sure I'm seeing the reactions from you that you walk on the campus, you can't find anything. And, you know, I've got 16,000 new students crawling around the campus right now, and 4 out of 5 of them is asking, where is it? Everything, you can't even find the bathrooms sometimes around the place. And the administration building, like, where's my office? Yes. That's right. There is no real main entrance in a way. I mean, there is a place, but it doesn't kind of resonate with people. And that's why I was trying to show you those new Kane Street and Stark Street entrances that'll provide main entrances into the area up there. And then you'll find all sorts of new signage and everything beginning to pop up in the parking lots that'll pick you up at the exterior points of the campus to kind of bring you in. New signage as you get on to get you on destination orientations. And then within the buildings, I don't know if you saw that big 13 on buildings or big 15s on there, so they're clearly marked, clearly identified. And then we need to advertise stuff on campus. You know, you saw the signs for Snoopy, you know, at the theater and other things that might be occurring over there. You need to know, you know, if you're heading for a play or something on the campus, where the heck is it up over there? So it's a problem. So we are going after the signage and the seismic stuff right now, and those are the first 2 steps in those 14 projects that I talked about. Then we start getting into building. We'll be doing the bond probably in the next year, year and a half. Hopefully we can pass that and get that going. In the meantime, we're going to start doubling our budgets around the maintenance to try to improve things and try to piece it together. And every little small remodel we do on the campus, like the Veterans Center going in, our signage, our use of materials, the kinds of colors, things like that are all in accordance with this master plan. So we do have little things moving us along, but we're going to need the big thing of a bond before long.
Any designs on wind powers? I know you have some solar power.
Yes, wind power is something we're exploring. We have a whole effort that we refer to as our innovation fund. So, you know, kind of the state funding demise that's going on where I used to have state educational support, now I call it assistance, and it's going by the wayside. Every day I wake up and look at state budgets. So we're kicking money into the innovation fund. The idea behind the innovation fund is how can we find new and exciting programs that resonate? And we're certainly looking at the alternative energy areas as a big way. Solar types of things, wind, geothermal, you know, restoring of it, like all that. There's a whole bunch of wind energy that's a problem up in the gorge area up there. They're making too much of it. I don't know if you saw in the papers where they're trying to figure out you know, ask those wind producers to stop. Well, I came from California and we were out of energy a couple of years back. And so we're looking at ways you could store all that extra energy and then redeploy it to states like California or something that might need it, or to Oregonians if they certainly need it. They certainly have first call. But the other thing is I came out of the IT industry. If you're seeing in the papers, the whole set of data centers being built along the gorge corridor out there. You know, is a whole nother direction of what's happening. And, you know, those are huge consumers of energy and a different application of it, and we're looking at that also. So it's not a very good answer other than the fact that we're exploring it at this point.
Do you have any information on how many students transfer to four-year schools and how many of those finish?
I know my research person does have that. I don't have it off the top of my head. It's a major component of what we do is prepare people to transfer from the 2-year to the 4-year. We're trying to have an expanded notion, though, of transfer. It certainly is the 2-year to the 4-year, but we have a lot of these adults that are coming in that are not prepared for college in a lot of ways. And so what we're trying to do with our adult basic skills program is cause them to be able to transfer into credit-bearing classes so they can at least graduate with there. And then the other part with that 40-40-20 thing is a renewed effort on our transfer from the high school into the community college as well. So an expanded notion of all that. And Maggie, if you can catch her name for me, I can get her the information on our transfer rates and graduation rates. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I have several concerns.
Sure.
I've been involved with the college since before it actually got going.
Okay.
And have watched the progression. And the community was always a part of the college. It was kind of the hub for a long time, I felt.
Right.
And they brought the community in with making meeting rooms available, having various things like the strawberry short courses, where they brought people in and you went around and you found out what happened to the college. but it made the community aware of what was going on and made people feel that they were a part of it. And the technology part was great, but when it was set up, it was with the idea that a lot of kids are not going to go through 4 years of college,
Right.
but they need training so that they can get out and earn a good living. Well, so many of those courses have been eliminated. You have the auto repair, which I don't know how big the program is at this point, but the woodworking and the electrical, so many things have disappeared. Are there any plans for bringing any of that back and getting the community back in where they feel that they're welcome?
Yeah, I think in this Brandon work we're doing, to your first part about bringing the community back in, budget decisions over the years have certainly pushed the community away in a lot of ways. If you get around our athletic fields and some of these other areas where people were invited in, they're just falling into disrepair that we need to go after and begin to fix. So that's why kind of our whole branding efforts about re-engaging with the community. And it's not simply about me out here giving speeches or some of my staff doing it, but it's really causing ways to interact. So the ways you described will try to get there. So you're going to see a push over the next couple of years to try to figure out how we re-engage and re-interact with the college. I think the second thing as to those various types of programs that you're talking about, we put people to work, and we have 80 programs right now. I think what's happening is you're starting to see a little evolution in them. So things like woodshop, maybe we're not running that anymore, but our automotive programs are really strong. Surprisingly, one of our strongest programs are welders. We can't produce enough welders around about. You know, we only have so many stations to do it. It's a little bit of a costly program for us, but we put people to work in that. Our allied health professions, whether they're nursing, surgical tech, respiratory technicians, dental hygiene, those are all 2-year programs that we put people to work, and all those programs are full. Cosmetology is a major program that puts people in. The mortuary science you mentioned, we're the only place in the Northwest that does mortuary science training, and we do that. And what we're looking to do now is find more pathways and more certificates that put people to work. And so we're starting to do a lot of community surveys about community surveys and economic surveys. Part of this 40-40-20 thing and all these new laws that are coming are saying it's not only about completion and they get a degree or certificate, but 2 other tests are beginning to show up. One is about the value to employers. Are our people hireable? When they go to work, are they good workers? Do they stay there? And do they help the company achieve? So we're going to be measured on the quality of individual we put out into the workforce as much as the fact they have the competency to do the work. The second thing is societal good. And this is a really hard one to measure right now. But do our students come out and not only go to work, but do they vote? Do they live in the communities that they're coming out of? What are the crime rates like in those communities? There's a lot of feeling with a better educated workforce that there's less crime and less negative kinds of issues going on in the community. So we'll be measured on, you know, the results of society as we go along with it. So a lot of long answer. On the short side is yes, we believe we call it CTE, our Career and Technical Education needs to be expanded. That innovation initiative should be creating a few more of those. Things like the video gaming, surprisingly, that's a 2-year program that puts people to work. That wilderness puts people to work up there. Our new Early Childhood Development Center puts people to work out there. So we've got more to come. One of the things we're not doing as well as we need to is getting the word out about these programs. And so you'll see renewed effort on that as well.
Well, Dr. Hay, you've given us a very clear view of where you hope the college will be heading, and we're delighted that you could come today. I want to also tell you that there will be a short Voters Service Committee meeting immediately after the program. Thank you.
Thank you all for having me, and glad to be here. And I do read my email. I do answer my phone. So if you want to send me anything, my email address is michael.hay@mhcc.edu. I'll be happy to respond to things. And if you want to talk or have lunch, I'll come do that too. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much, and Happy New Year.